everybody, it's Ed the Old Tech Guy, and today I've got an amazing video for you. Yes, you. If you're a new tech or a DIYer and you want 3 tips as to how to perform your tasks efficiently, on time, and well, I've got not only myself from a DIY perspective to offer you some advice, but I've got my buddy
888.
who is a new technician and went to Toyota school. Is that what you call it? Toyota school?
The T10 program.
The T10?
T10.
T10 program. T-time. I'm trying to make you all laugh, guys. T10 program. He went through the T10 program, and I want to ask him what he learned there and how that made him more efficient at repairing cars. So first, let me start out as a DIYer. Here are 3 things I do. One is I always take notes. Now, I use my phone, and I know a lot of you guys complain we don't want to see people on the phone. Well, I use my phone to put the notes of everything I'm doing as I go along doing it. So let's say I want to go ahead and replace some motor mounts. I go ahead and put the notes in there as to each motor mount that I'm going to do, the part number, and how I'm in what order I'm going to do it, and then the torque specs. As I go ahead and torque each one to torque spec, I put a note in there saying it's done. The other tip I do as a DIYer is I'll also write it on a board. So now I have a high visual and I don't have my phone, because sometimes having a phone in a greasy situation, an oily situation, makes no sense. So having a big board, you can write things down and then scratch them off as you do it. That helps me. The third tip I have for you as a DIYer is I take pictures. I take pictures before I start. I take pictures while I'm doing the job, and I take pictures at the end. Now, this slows you down, though, as a DIYer, so take note of that. But as a DIYer, we are not pressed for time like you are in a shop. So that's the big difference. Now, that is what I have to offer from a DIY perspective, and it's a really simple list, and you can do that too. But I really want to ask what he learned at the T10 program. Did they teach you anything specific to keep you efficient and fast and on time? Give us 3 tips you learned in T10, and then I'm going to ask you 3 tips that you learned at the dealership when you were working there. So let's start out with number 1. What's one tip that you learned in the T10 program that kept you efficient and, doing your job on time?
One thing was always asking questions, because when you're in the program, a lot of the time you don't know what all of the components, their names, what they do. That's why you go to class, to figure it all out and learn about it. But asking question helps a lot, because you can read something on a page and comprehend it, but then when you're there in the car taking it all apart, it happens where you don't know what you're doing. In the program, they always told us to take our time to read the material. Of course, there's going to be tests, but you can always retake those tests. But when you go in the shop, take advantage of that, because you only get a certain amount of time to actually figure out what you're doing. Because when you're in the shop, you're going to be in the same situation, and then you're going to be like, well, I learned this at school, but I don't remember it.
So if I understand correctly, the 2 things you can do to keep efficient that you learned in T10 program was ask questions, slow down, and go ahead. And what was the second one?
Take your time.
Take your time. So slow down is the second one. Take your time as a new guy. Don't try to rush through things. I know you're being paid by the hour or flat rate or any of that stuff, but you're new and it's easy to make mistakes. So in the beginning, take the hit in pay, but go ahead and take your time. I think that's what I gathered from what you said.
Yeah, because it happens a lot where guys in the shop, they're new and they want to make as much money as they can, because in reality, they probably got bills to pay, and who doesn't? But it's that moment where they mess up and it's their butt on the line. And then sometimes the dealership pays for it, for your mistakes. Other times not.
Understood. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and talk about in the shop environment, right? Now, that wasn't 3, by the way, but we'll take those 2. Do you have a third one by chance? It's okay if you want to stop at 2 from the T10 program.
No, I think two's fine.
2 is fine. He's giving you 2 tips from the T10 program. Take your time and ask a lot of questions. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the shop environment. Now, you worked at a Toyota dealership,
Yeah,
and
for 2
I'm
years.
for 2 years. He worked 2 years at a Toyota dealership. Not an easy transition from the T10 program to a dealership, I expect. So, tell us 3 things you learned about being efficient and keeping on time with your work orders at the dealership.
One, I would definitely say don't take on more than you could chew, because it happens a lot and it's gonna happen, and it still happens, where there are gonna be days where it's jam packed, full of people, and you're getting rocked, and you need money, and you see all the good hours on the board or wherever, but don't take on more than you can chew, because then you may think you can go as fast as the time, but it slows you down and it makes customers angry. And then the shop foreman comes back to you asking, where are the keys to this car? It's not done yet? Oh man.
Okay, so that's one, right? What's
Yeah.
the second? What's the second tip for these guys?
Always get your parts first. Always get your parts first. And if you don't know, if you're gonna do something that you've never done before, always ask for help. I know the guys in the shop. I don't know any dealership that doesn't have mechanics that don't have people that will help you. They're not going to do the job for you, but they're going to guide you. I've learned that secondhand, and it's helped a lot. And don't be afraid to ask questions while you're going along too. It may seem slow, or you may think, man, I'm wasting this guy's time, but you might as well take the time to get the job done right first, and the second time around, you know what you're doing.
Okay. What about a third item that you'd like to share?
When you go into a shop, some people may have money, some people may not. So don't think you need the most expensive tools when you go. All the tools that I bought when I first started were from Harbor Freight. Cheap, they got the job done. And as I went along, I started getting more money and I started getting more tools. I was only there for 2 years. It's not a lot of time. I know a lot of people watching the video, they're probably going to be thinking 2 years is nothing, and it's not. But don't think you need to buy expensive tools once you start. Cheap, if you can get tools that can get the job done and you don't break anything, more power to you. Of course, they're not going to last as long, but you'll get faster, you learn more, and you make more money. And with time goes, you'll get better tools. Trust me.
And so that everybody understands, it wasn't that he wanted to quit the career, and we'll ask him that question in a second, but he actually entered a volunteer program that he really wanted to get into. And once he entered that volunteer program, he still uses a lot of his mechanical skills. And now that he's in that volunteer program, when he one day decides to leave or graduate, he probably will go back into as a technician working on cars. Now, would you suggest that young people get into being a technician? Did you like your time there? Did you like what you were doing? Or do you think, guys, I'm going to steer you 100% away from this? Because right now there's a major lack of technicians. They can't get enough people in that industry. What's your suggestion for them as a last question of this interview?
I will say this: to learn on how a car works is more power to you, because it's happened to me where I know I've run into friends, guys that are way older than me, and they still don't know how to do an oil change. So more power to you. I definitely recommend it, even if it's just spending a year or two at a shop. I will say this though: going into a dealership, time is money there, and they will express that to you. They don't want to waste your time or their time, because at the end of the day, all they want is money. And it's happened before where dealerships, they suck the life out of you, to say it in the least.
Okay. What about the pay? I know a lot of the talk right now is that technicians are not being paid for the amount of work that they have to do. You think about a technician, he has to work on engines, he's got to work on, air conditioning, he's got to know plumbing, he's got to know electricity, he's got to know how to troubleshoot, he's got to know a lot more bits and pieces of different industries. And many are complaining that the pay scale isn't fair for that. What was your thoughts on that? How were you getting paid?
Well, the dealership that I started off at put me in quick loop. So just doing oil changes and tire rotations.
Mhm.
Even though I was going to school at the T10 program, that still didn't mean anything to them. They wanted to see what I was made of and if they could trust me working on their customers' cars. And I started off doing 16 an hour. And they did pay me for the jobs that I would do, but I mean, you're doing oil changes and tire rotations all week long. Maybe a tire patch or replacing a tire here and there, but that's like 20 hours a week. It's nothing. I didn't start making money until I was on a team um, as a line technician, and that was when I first got into the team. That was 18 an hour. But that was with no ASCs. The more ASCs you get, the more the dealership is willing to negotiate with you on your pay. So I definitely recommend getting the certifications because they do help. And and Toyota sees that too. So um, they'll work with you and start training you more, teaching you more about their cars or any car company. But there are some dealerships where they will scam you or not scam. I wouldn't say scam. That's not the right word. They'll lowball you because and in their defense, they don't know you. They don't know what you're made of. They don't know how fast you are. There are just so many words that you could put on a piece of paper and believe a person. It does happen. Some dealerships they pay really well, and it's really hard to get a job there because there's just so many mechanics that make a lot of money there, and they don't want to lose them. And then there are other dealerships begging for employees, and because they suck the life out of them.
We can't thank you enough for offering this great insight into the T10 program, offering the three efficiency items that can help people both from the T10 program and actually working in the dealership. And thank you very much for helping us out here on Ed the Old Tech Guy and TTS. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate your insight. Uh, Please leave some comments in here. If I can answer them, I will. Nate may not be able to, but I will go ahead and take on the questions as much as I can. See you on the next one, guys.